So, we're about a week away from the reveal of Modern Warfare 4's multiplayer in a complete capacity. Like, obviously we've seen Killblock and some stuff shown off at Fanatics Fest a few weeks back, and EWC this past weekend, but like full-fledged multiplayer and what we're normally used to, that's what's being shown off next week. We're pretty close to that. Within COD Next and that multiplayer reveal, if any of the last 4 years of showcases can be context clues, we should also learn about the third mode here within Modern Warfare 4 a bit more, that being DMZ. Now, whether or not that includes actual gameplay, I don't know just yet, but it really got me thinking about how big a swing DMZ really is, and how there's still a lot of questions that we just don't know the answers to for the big picture of the mode. Today's the start of a few days that I'm out of office. The next few days of content here are pre-recorded, so if there's any breaking news, we'll get to that a little later, but I want to take a bit of time here today and chat with you about the gamble that is DMZ and what the far future may look like. Drop your thoughts as we go along, drop a like if you enjoyed the video, and make sure to subscribe for more Modern Warfare 4 and other FPS coverage. We've got an insanely busy fall upcoming, and keep an eye out for our streams here if you want to join in on any of the conversations live as they happen. Finally, check out my friends over at Advanced GG, where Code Espresso can get you 10% off your entire order. More on that later. For now, let's get into it. So first, DMZ is by far what I'm most interested in, right? I said it since Modern Warfare 2 that the bones were always there, but they just didn't expand upon it far enough or upkeep the foundational changes and add to the replayability in its year of support. Granted, they had a solid number of maps, for example, that they did actually have content support for it between Al Mazrah, the updates to Al Mazrah as seasons went along, the addition of Building 21, Ashika, Vondel, Koshi Complex. Fundamentally, there was content there, but the game itself wasn't necessarily expanded upon until, Season 4's overhaul, I'd say. That made the game much more in-depth with features that made sense for an extraction shooter, but then, well, they just didn't update it again beyond that. I know I've told that story about how I feel and what it kind of rolled out for a million times, and I think hilariously the way the content schedule works out here, prepping stuff a week to 10 days in advance, I kind of think we have a video later this weekend also that mentions it again, so apologies in advance, but I think it's the truth. But DMZ and Modern Warfare 4, from the onset, the literal very first thing Jeffrey Smith of Infinity Ward said in our pre-reveal briefing was, we actually made a proper DMZ this time. We had a little bit more time. So the whole core of this presentation was we finally got time for this, so we wanted to do it right. And I mean, I still have my notes right here of their overall overview bullet points before going into everything else, where they said DMZ beta lessons applied, cohesive Modern Warfare universe, deep gameplay variety, game within a game, and meaningful player growth. All these things strike a chord and expand upon the base of what we saw within DMZ, learning directly from that gameplay, making a more unified universe, whereas DMZ's beta was just, it was kind of there, there was lore and universal connection, but not a ton. Gameplay variety is something that was lacking a bit within the beta, and certainly the game within a game portion is a massive expansion on what we saw in DMZ's beta in Modern Warfare 2. I'd say that Season 4 update was the closest we got to a game within a game, but then it just wasn't upkept or built upon, and everything we've seen thus far really does seem like they've gone a lot deeper and making it an experience within the sort of Modern Warfare box. From everything that we've seen thus far, it really does feel way more fleshed out. Story missions, dynamic operations, free roam, multiple ways to play however you feel, but then also with things like orders, contracts, bounties, cash to stash and wallet, items to craft and learn, dedicated progression and customization of your operators, traits to upgrade, an FOB forward operating base with every way that you can interact with the world around you, MIA and wanted systems. It all feels so much more in depth than what we had with DMZ and Modern Warfare 2, and it's not even something we've played yet, which is the cool part and what I'm kind of excited for, actually, because all of this on paper sounds great, and we just still haven't seen the intricacies of how deep this goes and how much we can actually do. Just simply surface level, there's already a lot more in DMZ this time around than last time. So ultimately, this could do very well to be the definitive entry-level game they wanted to create back in Modern Warfare 2 that, for whatever reason, they couldn't do it fully. Being the game that's the mainstream version of the genre, offering a base level while also still full-fledged offering all in one. And personally speaking, as a fan of the extraction genre overall, that's what I'm excited for, to see a proper introduction to the genre in the Modern Warfare capacity, but for people who may just be interested in and dipping their toes into the genre and haven't gotten quite too far into the other offerings. I've said it so many times before that COD is basically the McDonald's of FPS titles in that it's readily available, easy to access, it's a nature like that it's easy to approach. It's nice, especially when introducing the masses to something that's usually a bit more hardcore in nature or harder to approach, like extraction shooters at their core usually are. But there are certainly questions and concerns that can be raised from this that we just don't know how it'll be handled just yet for this. One of the first hurdles that I think the game kind of has is the $70 price point for a game in a comparable market that is much cheaper. All of what I just said about the game, about the ease of entry into the genre, still holds true. But if you are somebody who wants to get into the extraction genre, you're interested in DMZ, but you don't really care too much for the rest of the offering of Call of Duty, well, if you're just looking at that, $70 as a price point is certainly steep, especially when you look at the comparisons out there in the market in the genre. Your more mainstream offerings, let's say like Arc Raiders, I'd say that's probably the most comparable in ease of access to what we saw with DMZ before and what appears to be DMZ this time around, and having the mainstream level of accreditation here, having the same depth relatively where there's levels to ammo, shields, backpacks and stuff, but it's a more simplistic version of it. You don't necessarily need to know the caliber of round, magazine compatibility, scope zeroing, stuff like that. Arc was $40 when not on sale. Another one like that, Marathon, a more PvP-centric but more mainstream offering, is $40 when not on sale. Tarkov, $50 at base. Tarkov's PvE expansion was $30, and, well, they actually have a lot of DLC that we won't go into that adds up to quite a hefty price tag, but a lot of stuff paired out there in that capacity. Hunt Showdown, $30, but then you have other ones like Arena Breakout Infinite that are free. So when every single established extraction shooter out there right now is undercutting your price point, if you're a DMZ-focused player and don't care about anything else, is that value proposition worth it? Now, I need to state, I'm 1000% aware, obviously, the fact that $70 price accounts for multiplayer and a campaign, plus additional content support as the year goes on. So big picture, it's comparable, if not a bigger value proposition than some games of the past. But if you're solely there for DMZ, that extra $30 or maybe $40, however you want to like distinguish the value of DMZ itself, that extra money, I mean, it might be a tough pill to swallow. However, the paid element of it also is something that is both pros and, I guess, cons. Of course, the con being that it might be a deterrent for people that are only interested in DMZ, but inherently there's some sort of pros to a paid model versus a free model with what we saw in DMZ's beta. Listen, I'll be the first to own up to the fact that I was absolutely all on board with the free-to-play train for years. I'd seen the boom of player bases and other franchise, seen what it can and did do for Call of Duty, and that's great, bringing more and more people to the games that I enjoyed at the time. But it's pretty clear at this point that the biggest obstacle of free-to-play was an anti-cheat and over-commercialization of the game. I loved the Warzone boom initially. Love that it still was the leader for the Battle Royale genre and in the conversation, but brother, Ricochet may be working in some cases, but it surely could be working a lot better. Free-to-play is great for exposure, getting that sort of onboarding process of new players, because there's no risk to what you end up losing if you end up not liking the game. The only thing you lose is a little bit of your time. But the thing is, it also attracts a hornet's nest of bad actors, cheating whenever they want, and when they get banned, well, they just move on to another account. Now, recently it was mentioned that Ricochet is actually doing more hardware bans than they ever had before, which makes it tougher, sure, but like spoofing technology exists, and I'm sure it's going to be something they get around relatively easily. So fundamentally, in an anti-cheat discussion, probably a bigger deterrent is the fact that there's a monetary barrier. If a loser wants to cheat and then get banned, I'm sure they wouldn't want to pay $70 over and over and over and over again just to continue to annoy and troll people. So fundamentally, that could be a natural deterrent, but another pro is that there should be upkeep of content support, and again, not necessarily an over-commercialization of stuff. What we see with a lot of free-to-play games, or elements of a game that are free-to-play, is that it has to keep the lights on somewhere. It has to pay the bills, generally speaking, in a different area. Most of the times, that's through microtransactions and the shop. It has been reported time and time again that Call of Duty prints money with these microtransactions, right? Like, I'm talking the tune of billions of dollars a year just in store sales, not the actual game sales, the stuff that you see in the in-game microtransaction stores. Now, if this is something that DMZ is paid for, we shouldn't hopefully see some of that stuff bleed over into the game. Whereas one of the big problems with DMZ's beta was reportedly that it just didn't have the ability to return on the investment into the development of it. So that's why we saw things in the beta like the operators that came with a free UAV every single time you spawned, or a free self-revive every time you spawned into Al Mazrah or something like that. So like, they tried to kind of push the envelope a little bit, but that shouldn't be happening now at this point. Additionally, being a part of a paid model, I think that we should see the upkeep of content support and no real drop off, at least to the degree that we saw with DMZ's beta. The thing with third modes is that they often are upkept throughout the entire year as that main content offering, as of the last 10 years or so. Sure, yeah, Spec Ops had its raids, didn't really get upkept all that much. Modern Warfare Zombies was kind of a miss, but that was seemingly on a skeleton crew. This, having a full backing of an entire studio of Infinity Ward and then having it baked into likely the content plans, it shouldn't be something we see that type of scenario. So whether it means more maps, more foundational support, more quests on rotation, new rewards, challenges, whatever the case, we don't quite know, but it should mean more support, and at least the DMZ beta, if not a relatively healthy amount of stuff. But here's my question, I think, out of the overall curiosity that I have for DMZ and what we don't know just yet is, what's the long-term support looking like? Obviously, yeah, we're probably going to have 5 to 6 seasons of content support again, if it does keep up with what we just mentioned. But with the topic of support, we have to think long-term. Extraction shooters are still budding in the industry, but Call of Duty predominantly is a one-and-done cycle. 1 year, on to the next, and that studio starts working on their next project to come out in 2 to 3 years. And honestly, Infinity Ward is kind of notorious for sticking to this as well. The only time in the last 10 years or so was there was some extra content in Modern Warfare 2019 that got released after the launch of Black Ops Cold War, but other than that, Infinity Ward is basically okay, calendar's done, we've done our duty, we're moving on to the next one here, and that's it, we'll see you later. Even so much so to the point that they were supposed to be the ones that actually developed Modern Warfare 3, or was the rumor surrounding that game, and they just said, nah, we don't want to do it. But with DMZ and such an investment into this, don't you think that'd be kind of a massive waste of potential if something was booming, right? But that's a serious concern in my opinion. Free to play and tethered to Warzone really was one of those oh yeah, surely Raven could upkeep this like they do with Warzone. One of those moments that never happened. But when it comes to something that's tethered to a premium offering, encased in the name of Modern Warfare 4, I mean, whatever comes next from seemingly Sledgehammer in 2027 has no obligation to upkeep this game. Optimistically, I'd say, well, maybe they could sell it for $30 to $40 as a spin-off item if it keeps doing well. And we've actually seen that kind of happen before with Modern Warfare Remastered. Initially, that was only sold as a part of an upgraded version of Infinite Warfare. It later then was sold separately for $40 in June of 2017. Now, was it upkept? Not beyond that point, if I'm not mistaken. All of the subsequent DLC, COD 4 didn't really have a ton to begin with. That had all concluded, been released, and I don't think that we had more operations or anything with subsidiary, smaller content and cosmetics that was added after the fact. So while the precedent is there, the exact scenario is not that at least what we're looking for. So that, I think, is one of the biggest questions I have in relation to DMZ big picture, but general outcome, I mean, I'm still very optimistic for what this could be as an entry point into the extraction genre. Is it too late for DMZ? Is this another late adopter thing? I think this could be a scenario of akin to Warzone. Not exactly catching lightning in a bottle like Warzone was, but I do think that it could be a mainstream push that isn't necessarily the newest one here, but because of the name and the power that commands, I think that it's going to get attention. I think it's going to get players, and I think it's going to be something that does introduce a lot of players to what the extraction genre is, that it could be a jumping off point here at this. But I don't know that it necessarily is too late for that. Something maybe akin to a Blackout versus Warzone where, yeah, late adopters, but it still absolutely commands a little bit of a push in the industry. So we'll see where this goes as a mainstream, perhaps offering here in an easy to access version of an extraction shooter, but that's been on my mind as of late as we start gearing up for Modern Warfare 4's multiplayer reveal. So with that, that's where we're going to wrap it up. But before we do, a quick heads up, we've partnered with our friends over at Advanced GG. A bit under the radar here the last few months, but we're ramping things up now going into a crazy busy fall with multiple large game updates for games like Arc Raiders and future seasons of Battlefield 6, new launches in Modern Warfare 4 and GTA 6, and everything in between. Advanced is the healthier energy supplement option. I use it as my daily comparable cup of coffee, currently drinking the Raspberry Lemonade and Magic Rainbow Sherbet as two of my personal favorite flavors that I'd highly recommend, and On that note, we've actually co-branded the Rainbow Sherbet along with a few other items on their site, like a 26-ounce ice shaker cup. But for real, I love this stuff, and if you're looking for a replacement for your own cups of coffee, give this a try, check it out, or grab a restock here before the craziness of all the games and updates coming later this fall. And if you decide to, Code Espresso can get 10% off your entire order, but no pressure at all. I just appreciate you checking it out, and of course, checking out the video. But for now, again, that's where I'm going to call it. So let me know your thoughts down below. What do you guys think of DMZ? What do you think of the long-term plans here? What do you think of what we have on offer that we know of at the moment? Let me know. If you guys enjoyed the video, you found it at all insightful, do me a favor and drop a like on it. And of course, if you are new to the channel, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss a single thing regarding all things Modern Warfare 4, DMZ, and a ton of other content here upcoming. We got a very busy fall that I'd love to have in the community for. But for now, thanks so much for watching. Mine has been Espresso. I'll see you later. Take care and peace.